Is it possible to make the best decision every time that allows your life to flourish? I'm John Tisdale, and today we explore this critical issue of life: how to make decisions in a sound way that's going to let you prosper as best as possible. Now, I'm going to share some principles with you that, whether you're someone of faith or not, if you follow these principles, they will help you flourish in life. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't ever experience pain or suffering or loss, but as a general rule, if you follow this process, it will help you make decisions that cause you to prosper throughout your life. Decision making is so critical to life. If you don't have a good, solid strategy for making decisions, then you'll find yourself cornered in times of life when you need to make good decisions, and you'll end up making poor ones if you don't have a good strategy and process that you follow every time. I want to share with you some biblical principles that I discovered that have influenced my life now for many years. And ever since making a shift to following this strategy, my life has flourished more than ever before. And prior to that, I made some really bad decisions that proved so costly. I ended up living in fear and stress and just was a mess. But after I made a critical shift and began making decisions following these principles, it really helped me move into a season of life where I have been prospering for a long time. And by that, I don't mean some name it and claim it prosperity gospel or anything of that nature. I'm talking about positioning yourself to be able to make good decisions that allow you to move in fullness and to flourish with the best life has to offer. Let me begin with things to avoid. The first thing I always avoid in decision making is not to make a hurried decision under pressure. If I'm put in a situation where I have to make a decision right now, and I feel the pressure of that situation, I know I'm not going to flourish in that environment. The agendas that can get placed on us by people or circumstances sometimes put us into a place where we feel like we have to make a decision right now and we need to make a good decision. Most of us don't flourish in that environment. So whenever I'm put in a pressured situation where I have to make a decision right now, I prefer to say, hey, I don't flourish in this situation. I'm not going to make a decision right now. And if I can postpone that decision until I have more time to think about it, then I know I can make a good, solid decision. Otherwise, if a person or situation is forcing me to make a decision right now, what I typically do is I say, no, I'm not going to move forward in this situation because I just don't trust that I'm going to make a decision that's going to have the right outcome. Second, I'm careful not to make decisions whenever there's an atmosphere of anxiousness and worry. We all get put into situations where stresses and pressures are being applied to us, but in those situations, I find that I'm often so befuddled and I'm not clear-headed in my thinking that I just don't do well. And I realize this is related very much to the first one, but here it's not so much about the timing of the decision as simply the fact that I'm operating in a paradigm of anxiousness. And when I'm anxious, I don't make clear, rational, good decisions. And so whenever I'm recognizing that anxiousness that's on me, I want to back away from the situation and clear my head so that I can think positively and rationally. Third, I don't want to make decisions based on fear, because I've come to believe that fear is a liar and a thief. Its purpose is to steal from you and from me. And anytime we agree with fear, we listen to that voice and we respond, we make a decision based on fear, I believe that it will always cost us something small or something significant in some cases. And as a result of that, I don't want to make a decision where I'm hearing all of the lies, the thoughts, the possible scenarios and thinking those through and then allowing those to influence which direction I go. So instead, whenever that fear is present, I take the time to come out of that environment and that way of thinking, that polluted thinking, and I move into a place where I can make clear, rational decisions that are going to help me prosper in the future. Approaching a decision with fear is a defeatist mentality. It's not going to help you make a decision where you prosper. And so those mentalities that no one's watching out for me, I've got to watch out for my own back, I've got to take care of me, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this work. Those kinds of mentalities don't let us prosper. Instead, we come into a place where we are making decisions on a different paradigm. Instead, I like to make decisions based on joy and delight. When I think about a situation, decisions, and possible outcomes, if one of them brings me joy and delight, that is the direction that I want to head. And so you can see the difference in making a decision based on fear and not wanting to do something that could bring harm versus making a decision that brings joy and delight. I always move and decide in the direction of joy and delight. Second, and closely related, I like to make decisions based on my hopes and dreams. Whenever I'm thinking about a situation and I'm having to decide what to do, for example, there's a job offer, when I look at that and I'm trying to decide, does it get me excited? Does it look like this might help me to fulfill my hopes and dreams? If so, then that is a good motivator to move in that direction versus thinking about how fearful I might be about the interview process or what it might look like. If I'm considering a job opportunity in terms of fear, well, what if I don't like the people, that isn't going to lead me into a good direction. But instead, if I think about what is the potential, how might this help me to fulfill what is in my heart, then that excites me and moves me into the direction of this is what I'm looking for, and that helps me clarify my decision making. And third, I like to make decisions based on what gets me excited about the future. If I'm looking at two or more options in a decision and one of those gets me excited about what could come out of this, then that is the direction that I want to move. Instead of making a decision based on fear, what might develop, what could go wrong in this situation, I don't like that as a motivator, and instead I like to look for positive outcomes that get me moving toward my destiny of what I want to do or who I want to be. Finally, I've developed a process that I use for making decisions that has proven very effective and consistent at helping me make decisions that cause me to flourish and prosper. And that begins, first of all, with prayer. I begin by praying and asking God to meet my need, to help me to make a good decision, and to move me toward my hopes and dreams of who He created me to be. And second, I want to wait restfully for peace to come to me about direction. That is, after I've prayed, I then want to take this posture where I'm just resting and waiting on God. It's easy for us to pray and then immediately go about the process of fulfilling my own needs anyway, but that cuts off the supply line of God. Instead, once I've asked God to intervene in my situation, to help me make a good decision, the next thing I do is I wait patiently for God to show up and do what He wants to do. This is not an easy process because waiting is something that we don't like doing, especially as a Western culture, but as a human race, we prefer not to wait. We like to make a decision, get going to make things happen. The problem with that is, once I've asked God, if I then step up and start fulfilling that need or making that decision out of my own self-strength, God's not going to be able to help me. So instead, what I need to do is to simply be patient. And when that angst and striving comes up in me that says, oh, I've got to do something, I've got to make a decision, I'm going to go ahead and do something since God hasn't answered. I mean, it's been all of 3 minutes and God still hasn't answered. We get in those situations where we want God to show up right now. The problem is, God usually doesn't show up on our timeline, because usually when we're in those situations of striving and being restless, we're operating out of our flesh, our natural person, and how we would make decisions in that striving condition isn't good at all. And so a lot of the time, that waiting process is God just waiting on us to settle down, to take some deep breaths, to get in alignment with His ways and His timing. And I found that once I make that shift from, I've got to get this done, I've got to make a decision right now, if God isn't going to do it, I'm going to go ahead and make this decision right now. Here's the timeline. If it's not by noon, once I move into that situation, I'm not going to make good, rational decisions. So instead, I've learned that once I take some breaths and settle into a good place of waiting on the Lord, that He always shows up in the perfect timing. At the time, it never seems perfect. It always seems like God is too late. But in retrospect, looking back, it's always clear, oh God, thank you that you didn't operate in my time. Thank you that you did this your way, because it ended up just perfect. And the way I know that I'm done waiting is when peace comes. Whenever I have this settled peace that I know the direction that I need to take. Sometimes that happens quickly. Other times it happens after having conversations with others, or maybe even a dream in the night. But I wait until peace comes. And once I have peace, then I'm ready to make my decision. Third and finally, I make a decision once I have peace about it. Once I know this is what I have peace about doing, I always move in the direction of peace. When there is a lack of peace, I simply don't move forward. I don't make a decision. If I'm cornered where I have to make a decision and I don't have peace, then my decision is no, I'm not going to go forward when I don't have peace. That is a recipe for disaster. Every time in my past that I've made a decision where I didn't have peace about it, I ended up paying a price, and it was costly to me, and I don't want to repeat that mistake again. So instead, I know that peace is my guide, and I move forward only whenever I have peace about direction. And that's how God always moves in my life. I know that God is giving me direction when I have absolute peace. I know this is the right decision forward, and then I can make that decision confidently, knowing that in the end, God is going to bless me as a result of moving in peace, which is also moving in faith, knowing that God has my back, that God is for me, and He's helping me advance forward to prosper me. And when you're in that place of peace and rest, God can freely move, and He always proves Himself faithful. That as I've gone through that process, as I've prayed, and then I've waited, and I've taken a posture of waiting and resting, that God shows up at the right time. And usually when God shows up, it produces a result that gets me excited and hopeful and encouraged for the future. God always over-delivers. And so I'm one to give a testimony that I follow this 3-step process, and also the things that I talked about it that I avoid and ways that I make decisions. I've been doing this for many years now, and since making this shift, I have to say I've prospered as never before. And my wife and I both adopt this decision-making process, and together we're just always in harmony about our decision-making process. We check with one another if we feel any anxiousness about the situation, or we're bantering back and forth, discussing issues at hand. If we sense that one or the other is anxious, we just take the time to talk it out, to pray, and ask the Lord to give us peace in that situation. And as the two of us have just waited on the Lord, He's done remarkable things. Jobs, houses, friendships, just opportunities that we would have never even imagined were possible. And there have been many times that we were confronted with a situation and it seemed like, boy, we think this is the end. All the pressures, and it looked like any moment now everything could collapse down in on us. And so instead of us reacting out of our flesh and self-strength and our own understanding in those situations, we just called on the Lord, waited on Him in a posture of rest and peace. And God has always shown up and over-delivered and has brought incredible blessings to us. So I want to encourage you to, next time you're making a decision, to think about these and try this process and these dynamics in decision making and follow those. And I think you'll find that they help you make good, solid decisions that move you forward into your future and destiny of who God created you to be. So I just challenge you to try that the next time you're making a decision, see what it produces. And if you're like me, you're going to see God faithfully showing up. Even if you're not someone of faith, that's okay. Still try it. God will be faithful to you, even if you don't believe in Him. Just still pray and ask Him and wait. Just follow these processes and see for yourself if it doesn't prove true. I think you're going to find that this so brings you into a new level of even just laying down the fear and the worry and the anxiousness and developing confidence in the goodness of God. And you so find this place of being in rest and peace all the time that you just don't want to ever live life any differently. I can testify to that fact. I'd love to hear from you. What's your experience? Have you tried this? What has been the result? Leave your thoughts and comments, your questions below, because I want to read those and use this as a catalyst for some future videos where we delve into this issue in more detail, because decision making is so crucial to the quality of life that we all experience. We need to develop processes like this that help us succeed, and I encourage you to give this a try. Well, I thank you for watching. Hey, I almost always, anytime I'm producing a video, I also have a companion article that I write on the same topic on my website at johntisdale.com. So if you are interested in this, I'll often go into more detail in those articles. So visit the website and you'll find additional information about this topic and many other topics of interest. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, spread the love. Yes, sirree.